Jack Smith's Deposition, Part 7. Rudy Giuliani and Partisanship Over Country. Welcome to Law and Society. Please remember to subscribe, and let's start talking about Jack Smith's deposition. What I'm going to be doing is reading you excerpts from Jack Smith's deposition. And why I'm doing this is so that we can remember what Donald Trump did on January 6, 2021. We don't want that history to be rewritten. We will keep pushing towards the truth every time Donald Trump lies about what happened on January 6th. And this January 6th is the first January 6th that insurrectionists who were convicted or pled guilty to having attacked the Capitol have been pardoned by Donald Trump and will very likely be in Washington, D.C. So while they try to change the narrative, it is incumbent upon the rest of us to focus on the truth and remind each other who was responsible for January 6th and what exactly happened. So I'm going to read you the questions and then Smith's answers. Can you tell us a little bit about what your investigation uncovered regarding communications with members of Congress that's related to the attack on the Capitol on January 6th? Smith: there was pretty extensive contact with members of Congress. These were instances of members of Congress, again, specifically on January 6th, but also before that, where either they were reaching out to the White House or the White House was reaching out to them, or and through conduits to the president, including, as I said, Mark Meadows. Question: what was the nature of some of these communications with the White House or with co-conspirators of Donald Trump leading up to January 6th with members of Congress? Smith: sometimes the communications were relevant to us to show that people were telling Donald Trump that the things he was saying were not true. Other times, there was evidence of false nature of the things that they were saying. So an example would be, there were 2 voicemails that Rudy Giuliani left for senators, and those voicemails show him saying things that were not true, using knowingly false claims to try to get those senators to try delay the certification of the vote. But how this conspiracy was trying to stop the lawful transfer of power, how that worked, was important for us to understand. We had evidence from Department of Justice officials that Donald Trump said to them, just say the election is corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. I think given that was the perspective that Donald Trump had, our view is that the case we would have presented at trial would have been Donald Trump preying on the party allegiance of people in his party. And people like the vice president didn't agree to that. People like the elector from Pennsylvania I mentioned didn't agree to that. People like the Speaker of the House in Arizona didn't agree to that. But the extent to which those contacts were happening was relevant to our investigation. Question: did your investigation uncover or learn that Mr. Trump personally called members of Congress on the evening of January 6th? Smith: yes. Do you remember who those members were? I would have to look at the records to be sure, but the best of my recollection, he was trying to get in touch directly himself with Senator Hawley and Senator Haggerty. And then there were several senators who he directed Rudy Giuliani to get in touch with. Who were those senators that Mr. Trump directed Rudy Giuliani to get in touch with, to the best of your recollection? Smith: to the best of my recollection, this comes from an email, and I think it was a text maybe, that Boris Epstein sent a letter to Mark Meadows, and it basically said something to the effect of, the president told the mayor to call these senators, and they needed numbers. And what our investigation ultimately showed was they sent that text after they'd already started trying to call members and didn't think they had ended up understanding that they didn't have the right phone numbers. In fact, the message that they left for Senator Lee, which he voluntarily provided to our office, was meant for Senator Tuberville, I believe. And the message he left for Senator Sullivan, I believe it was for Senator, the name escapes me, but it was another senator that he meant to call. You know, this is Rudy Giuliani's well-oiled machine from the Four Seasons Total Landscaping parking lot. Who is Boris Epstein? Smith, he was one of the co-conspirators in the case. Question, what role did he play in the larger conspiracy? Smith, he played several roles. He was involved in the fake elector scheme and also in sort of pushing out some of these false fraud claims. We also interviewed Rudy Giuliani. We asked him, if you recall, he referenced the fact that he was calling on fellow Republicans. We asked him, why did you say you were calling on fellow Republicans? He said, well, I wasn't going to be calling Democrats about this. Even some Republicans wouldn't go along with this. So of course I would call only Republicans. And in fact, that was consistent with our investigation throughout, that the people President Trump and his co-conspirators reached out to were people who they thought would go along or help them because of party allegiance. And Giuliani in particular would reference that he expected their cooperation because they were Republicans. There was one particular meeting that he attended where he got a hostile reception because he had no evidence to back up the fraud claims. And he said something to the effect of, I thought we were all Republicans here. And so that was a theme throughout the case. And it went to the strength of the case we had, because the witnesses we were going to call were the people that the president reached out to sort of further this criminal scheme. Question. So do you recall any evidence when you were talking to Mr. Giuliani that he truly believed all the voter claims that he was putting out around the country? Smith, our evidence was he did not. And in fact, when we interviewed him, he disavowed a number of the claims. He claimed they were mistakes or hyperbole. Even the claim about Ruby Freeman, where he, basically destroyed this poor woman's life by claiming she was a vote scammer. President Trump did the same thing in a recorded call with the Secretary of State. He disavowed things he'd said in that interview. So with that said, this ends the 7th episode of excerpts from Jack Smith's deposition. If you have any questions about it, go read the transcript or watch the videos or leave a comment in the comment box. I've put the videos and links all in the description box of this video. So thank you for listening, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.